Mass rock is when people have lost, they basically lost pretty much everything at this stage, possessions wise. The only thing they're holding on to is culture and the spiritual side of life. But all the possessions, the land is all gone. Basically, you're paying rent to some guy. Um, yeah, your place where you used to bury your relations belongs to some other religion now. So you're out here in the bushes and the trees and the rocks, and that's what you know. Because when Cardinal Faith and Diarmid of Dublin and those ones were all doing their stuff over here in Kearney's Glen a couple of decades back, it's kind of what they were finding was this inspirational link between the early Christian experience and the nature poetry that the early Christians were writing about, you know, how we find the God's creation, the beauty of creation in all of nature around them. There's that really strong link to nature. And when you get into this penal period, it's nearly the same thing happens again. They're out again in the bushes and the rocks and the streams and the river valleys and hidden places, and it's like a different kind of way of viewing the world when you've lost everything and you start to see what kind of, you know, you're holding on to that last thing. And what people here hold on to is they hold on to their religion and they hold on to their culture, especially in around the Granaghan family and the people who were associated with them in this parish. It's like an old tradition. They're the tradition bearers. They're holding on to it. There's something. This actually. The other thing we know about this is the actual place name is Craig of Adivan. So Craig is the Irish word for rocks, a rocky place, a wee cliff. Craig. Madhuban is the Anvadivan bit. So Madhuban, a white dog. The rock of the white dog. Craig and Vadivan is what this place is called. So this is Craig of Adivan Mass Rock, and that's the Granaghan rocks. And over the back then there's an old fort, castle, stone fort, partly destroyed. And it was a tradition that the people had here that fort had been destroyed by the English in some of the wars. And
The Castle Rock.
yeah, the Castle Rock is called. It looks down over on the other side into Gortmuir. And this is it was rediscovered. It's a manuscript, a story in a manuscript that was rediscovered by a fella. You might have met him. Somebody is Kieran O'Matthew. Came up. He's been coming up for a few years. He's a Kildare fella. He's been coming up. He found
The
this.
big long-haired boy.
No,
No, that's okay.
no.
Oh, I am.
He found this when he was doing his doctorate, and he tried to find out what he thought it was from the Midlands, from Meath, and everyone seemed to think it was. And then he found a few place names in this old manuscript, and he eventually discovered it was County Derry. The story was from County Derry, and everybody here had forgotten about this story. But it was written. Turns out this ancient tale, not an ancient tale, it's written around 1700. So around the time of the Granaghan's here, this family, quite possibly by some of these people here, but they're definitely all kind of. It's all written like an allegory. So it's a story of a fox chase. The fox chase. The poet is writing. It's in the words of the poet, who's a harper as well. He's going around these families' houses, and he mentions Cassidy's, and he mentions the Granaghan's, and he mentions a lot of the families around here in this story. And he talks about this planter called Montgomery, who's known in Mahara as the Major, and Major Montgomery, who was an English in the English army, in the British army. He was charged. He was at 1690 in that campaign, and he was charged down with cutting down the rebels as they were after that in this district afterwards. So he is, you can still go in. His house is still over above Mahara, where the man has the yard we call him, Joseph Crawford's meal, that's we're heading out to Knockclough Road.
Yeah.
In there is where the important Montgomery lived. And the story of this fox chase that Montgomery had, presumably the story of Montgomery chasing some of these people who were involved as Irish soldiers in the war. And what happens is we know also from history that there were two priests hung, for example, over in Labby or Maharab. It's like Maharab Parish, somewhere around. There's a tradition in Labby of them being hung from a tree over there. So there's a lot of bad things happening around that time. And people being chased and vengeance was being dispensed by various people. So this allegorical chase that happens and the killing of these grey foxes. So this is Craig of Adiban, the white dogs, right? So this guy's speaking of all his place names are doubled up. So he says it's called this, but it's also called this. He says his family's names, he put them all into like a Latin, pseudo-Latin, to disguise them. So then there's a lot of investigative work to try and figure out who he's talking about in here. But it possibly is that the end of the story is that anyway, that Montgomery, Major Montgomery, finds the foxes in Craignahan, the rock of the grey foxes. So this is the rock of the white dog, and the place name in here is the rock of grey foxes. So quite possibly finds it here. And the story then that O'Donovan got of the English attacking Castle Rock and throwing it down the cliff on the far side might also then be a remembrance of this same event, whatever this was. So these people, these grey foxes, are killed. The poet dies from a broken heart in the end of it. You know, so it's kind of it's like a comedy, but it's also comedy, and it's also there's this really dark edge to it. You know, it's really a strange piece. So I'll just read a wee bit of that. So let's see, say the bit where he comes. Yeah, this bit here. So again, it's a bit like the other story where this guy is saying, whoever wrote this poem, or wrote this story, he puts in bits of poetry, and he'll have prose then as well, and it goes on like that, and it's meant to be kind of read out in a Keeley house, you know, on the fireside at a gathering. He says, let me see, where did we go? See if you can find some of these place names here. Granaghan Mueris Gumrinus. So that's Mueris Gumrinus is Major in Montgomery. Mueris Gumrinus. He's just using this kind of bog Latin just to make it comic. Duyanu Shalag agus Fee agus Fian Kosker agus Fana Forishif agus Gra Halaga agus Fana blah 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 blah. This is coming to do this hunt. And he blows his trumpet, Bruins agus an tra moors a law steed 1 yard agus go win a stick. So he comes on his horse and he blows the trumpets and the horns and agus nation in ye Carrick the Chronicher the Gronin Fisheratcher Carrick the Kilt Carrick the Kilt, you know, on the way on the side of the main road there. Carrick the Kilt agus Crock and the Rickfish Fisheratcher Crocklochram, the hell of the assembly, that is called Crocklochram, not Bochram. He's there too. Agus Walla Shafta Fisheratcher Colin Fisher, that's Bon Cross, near Mahara as well, or near Clochram. And Schlachten and Me Fisheratcher Schlachten Muggling, that's another place name over there. Goes on and on and on, then he talks about I was cool to the back place of the robbers, Frish Aratcher Kochnadi, which is called Onadi, agus dum Lister Fisheratcher dum Rush, agus Bolin the Slat Fisheratcher Currach at Mahara again, agus Carrick-a-Dangan Fisheratcher Craig the Shonach Lia. He's calling this place, if it is this place, I'm not convinced that it is, or not positive it is, but he's calling this Carrick-a-Dangan. So the Dangan could be the castle out the back. Dangan is a strong place in Irish Dangan. New Dingle and Dangan, which is called Craignahan. So it kind of all ties together. If you interpret it that way, then this story from 1700, written by the people who were the Gaelic families who were holding on here in this district. You remember O'Hood, the O'Brien poets were calling O'Hood their tutor, their teacher. So they've that Gaelic bardic tradition coming on. They're writing, so somebody with a Gaelic bardic tradition is writing this story. Mentions all these people, mentions Cassidy's, as I said, Kellys are mentioned too, mentions a number of families around here. So you can see that Granaghan and this old chapel, the Mass Rock, this area around here where these families are living, is very important in the story of Swatra's history. So it's a good place for us to start looking at Swatra, modern Swatra, and what happens and what has made it what it is. I think anyway. Beautiful spot.
It's unbelievable.